Welcome everyone.
Go.
Today it's June 12th again, and we're here with Tom Ryan and Barbara Englehart's wife. I'm Kevin, Tom's son, and these are some of the collected memories of Tom. Today's topic is to continue on from yesterday is camping. And yesterday, or the previous episode, we talked about the beginning times of the camping with the first two trailers that we had. And then now we're on to the third trailer, or at least lots of different trips. Anyway, please take it away.
Yes, the best trailer we had was called a Scamper, and it was professionally built and very light, and it slept seven of us. Sometimes Grandma went along too. I don't know how we managed all that. I can't remember how we all slept in there, but it was great. And when we went to Mexico with that, we were experienced campers by then. After going into Tennessee and Kentucky, I remember one time we wanted to show the kids we couldn't go foreign travel. We couldn't afford that. But the best thing we had was the United States and Mexico and Canada. So you got experience in two foreign countries. But we went into Kentucky once, and I had a trailer on the back, of course, and I did most of the driving when we were on dirt roads. And I would pull off the highway onto a dirt road. I didn't know where I was going, just to see something besides interstate. And we came upon a little village of homes, kind of rickety homes, and it was in Kentucky, and we were in hillbilly country. And you kids all looking out the window and so on, and there were a bunch of kids about your age, like 8, 9 years old, watching this big trailer and car come up their little road. And finally the road ended right about there where those kids were, and there wasn't any more road, and I had to turn around. And so I was going, showing off. I was pretty good at I could back it up and forth, back and forth. And finally I could get the thing going in the opposite direction from where it was going. But once I hit the mailbox, they had a bunch of rural mailboxes on posts, and the trailer hit the mailbox, and one of the kids, about 8 years old, he says, "I'm gonna call the cops on you." And the kids had a really thick accent compared to ours. And you were watching all this out the window. So that was our first foreign travel. We went to Kentucky and found the campground.
I think this is a picture here of the Kentucky,
there it is.
The Scamper, and this is. I remember the guy catching a turtle in the campground and cutting it up for soup. And
oh yes, we thought we were wild Indian explorers or something, and you would meet people in the campground, and we met some wonderful people, and we even exchanged Christmas cards 6 months later, and wanted to continue the friendship. I remember one of them was a Mormon, and he tried to convert us, and so I talked to him a lot about this Mormon religion. I learned a lot. I think we learned a lot from people, and we were going one direction, they were going the other, and they'd say, "Watch out for this, and be careful about that." And so we got advice and knowledge from our fellow campers as we went around the country. So then we went to Mexico, and we went around the Glorietas and through big cities. We went to Mexico City, and we went to the ruins south of Mexico. There were 100 million people living in the New World before Columbus discovered it. And these people had great civilizations. And so we got to see some of them. And one of them near Oaxaca in southern Mexico. And I remember you kids, they had built tunnels, or kind of like trenches, and you'd get down in these tunnels and run, and you were hidden, and then you'd pop up out of the tunnel and scare everybody. And so we saw how the Indians had built, and we call them Indians, of course. They didn't call themselves Indians. They were
Aztecs.
Mayans. So
Yeah.
we Aztecs and so on. We visited. They called it the Mayans down in the Yucatan Peninsula, and got to see them. So I think we had some foreign travel and adventures that you kids were able to experience. And you were really good. You'd be in the back of the car, and we had way in the back. This is a Ford Country Squire, and then the middle seats, Grandma might be sitting there, and Marilyn might be driving. One of the kids got to be the navigator, we called it, and you got the maps, and you had to tell us where to go, what routes to take, and what the best way to get there. And so you learned how to do map reading and mapping at a very young age. And then, of course, I was a school teacher, and I couldn't help myself. I gave lectures, and the kids called them 90-minute lectures. And I overdid it, I'm sure.
Yeah,
they were good sports. And listened to
the two places for a captive audience were the car and then dinner time also.
You had to listen to my stories. They were a lot of them the same stories I'm telling now, I guess. But we enjoyed Mexico most of all. I think it was the most.
Let me show a picture here. This is the scamper at the campground in Mexico City with the only tree. We're sitting next to the only tree in the whole campground. It was, you were studying at the University of Mexico for summer school. We stayed here for 6 weeks. And
yes.
It was, I can remember it, one of the most terrible days of my life, though. It was, we got the turista. Everybody had the turista, and I had a cold. And I was like throwing up and had diarrhea, and it was coming out both ends. We didn't have access to a bathroom very close away. So we were using bowls and stuff to collect. And it was raining that night or that day. It was just an awful day. But mostly, I mean, there was, it was very sunny days. It would rain in the afternoon, every about 3 o'clock in the afternoon all the time, but surprisingly a big amount of rain. But there were interesting places around the campground where we could go and walk around and meet little kids that spoke Spanish.
Well, the merchants, they would be had puppets, and they came to the gate, and the owner of the campground wouldn't let them come in to the campground. So they'd stand at the gate, and you kids would go out there, and you wanted to buy these puppets that they made, handmade, hand carved, and you would dicker with the merchant, and you couldn't speak Spanish, and he couldn't speak English, but you managed to dos pesos, tres pesos. You learned to count in Spanish, and so we'd let you loose in the marketplace too, where open markets in Mexico, and they give you some money, and you'd go and dicker with the merchants, and they got a kick out of that. These American kids who couldn't even speak Spanish, and they were bargaining, and they'd bargain back, and you'd arrive at a price, and you'd come back with we'd watch you doing all this from a safe distance to see how it all worked out. So those are all, I think, great learning experiences. And we climbed, of course, over the ruins and climbed up on them and took guided tours and had guides that could speak English. And I think I learned a lot in my teaching. I taught geography too, and a lot of what I taught was learned on camping trips. And then, of course, I got government grants. Sputnik went up, and the Russians looks like they were ahead of us in the space race. And so America got all excited about that. We have to be number one. And so why are we behind? Well, students aren't learning math and science. Why is that? Well, we got a lot of teachers that are teaching math and science, and they don't know what they're doing, and they need advanced education. And so they had scholarships. And gradually they got out of science and math, and geography was considered a science. So I got to go to school in the summer in the middle of Michigan, at Michigan State University, and geography paid for by the government. And then when we got back, I got a raise because I had college credits added to my record, and I would get a raise. And we did that a lot. And in Michigan, it turned out that the middle of Michigan, where Michigan State is located, is right in the middle, and it's a flat area, and there weren't any woods or anything around there to make a state park. So we had to be 50 miles. I had to commute 50 miles every day and back and forth because there weren't any campgrounds close to the campus. But I got my 6 credits, and I became a geography teacher that added to the ones I had from the University of Illinois. And I did that through my whole career. I enjoyed that very much.
Yeah, we went to Lansing, Michigan, and Oneonta, New York. There was a place out in California that we went, maybe, yeah. And
well, I went to UCLA.
That's right.
I think you kids were raised by then, and I went alone to UCLA. But I got to go to a lot of schools free and learn credits, and I enjoyed it. I think I enjoyed going to school, being a student, more than I did being a teacher. So it was a great experience. And you kids got to camp at Gilbert State Park near Oneonta, New York, where the university was, and they had a swimming pool there. And the people from New York City would come up to the swimming pool and up to the campground and to spend the day. But we had our camper there, and you were going to be there for a month, and had to find things to do, and invented games you could play and so on. It was those summers at the state park camps were educational too, as you met people from all over the country. And I thought you had, although we never went to Europe or Asia, we had foreign travel and the learning that you gained from it. And Kevin is now a linguist because he saw those people speaking Spanish and they could understand each other, and he couldn't understand them. So he wanted to go and learn now he can speak Spanish. That's great.
I'm trying to think. Let's see. We also, where is it? Let's see. There we go. We also when we went to Boulder, we camped out in Eldora Springs.
Oh, that's right. Okay. There it is.
The 4 years.
I was lucky enough to get a sabbatical, so I need to. That's a sabbatical that I got from my high school. High schools didn't usually give sabbaticals, but I got one, and the whole family went to Boulder, Colorado, and it was one of the best years of my life. And the kids were reluctant to go out of school in Elgin and go out there and go to public school in Boulder. But as it turned out, they enjoyed it as much as I did. And the whole family, that whole year in one city we lived. And at first we couldn't get into our house. We rented a house of a professor.
There's a picture of the car that had 454 cubic inch. It was a huge motor, right?
Yeah, right. We finally got a good big motor and a lighter trailer, and we finally learned how to do it. But this canyon is called El Dorado Canyon, and it's now a state park. But at the time we were there, at 1960s, it was not a state park. It was a private campground, so we could stay there as long as we wanted. And when the house that we were going to rent was ready, and the people that owned it left and went to England, you had a sabbatical to England to learn about radar and an electrical engineer. We got the house and everything in it. They left books, plates, silverware, everything. And so it was really great. We didn't need to have anything, and we enjoyed that house very much. Had a lot of good times there. Company would come there, and
His name was
so
Jim Thompson, right?
right, yeah. The two special friends who also worked with this professor, Larry Sinish, and it was Larry Sinish. I sent a letter to him, and I said, "Could I come out and spend a year with you and learn
Okay.
economics?" And he said, "Sure, come on." I didn't take any credits. I already had all the credits I needed at the top of the scale, but I learned so much from him.
We're wandering into a different topic, which I think we should take up maybe some other episode, Boulder.
Okay.
Yeah, I think would be a good
Boulder,
place to do that. Yeah.
Let's talk about Boulder, right?
And we probably have even more camping stories to come up. I can think of a couple, but we've, again, run out of time. So,
Okay, great.
yeah. Okay.
Very good.
All right. Take care.